Live online. Hi.
You guys don't mind if we start early, do you?
It's all like
okay?
2 minutes.
It's 2 minutes early.
2 minutes early? Is that okay? All right.
You good, Nisha?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, welcome to Dickson. If you're not from here, I'm happy to meet you. My name is Amanda Decker. You may have met me before at either the Low Carb Conference or as a client with mine. This is something we're going to try to do every quarter or every few months just to get more information out to the community because we want you to be healthy. We want everyone to be healthy, and everyone deserves the chance to hear good quality information that is legitimate and not changed by food industries or farming industries, but is just factual. So we hope that you will get that tonight. How this is going to work is we're just going to talk for a few minutes, and then we're going to open up to a Q&A. We're going to alternate taking questions from the floor and then taking questions from the live area. If you do have a question, just kind of raise your hand when we call for you. We'll repeat your question. Try to keep it brief because we're going to have to repeat for the live community. And honestly, I don't know that I'll be able to repeat it the way that you put it out if you give me a book to repeat. Things about me. I've been a nurse practitioner for 20 years in primary care. The last 6 to 8, I lose count, has been focused on helping people get healthy, lose weight, and optimize their health through nutrition predominantly. I've got 1 foot in conventional medicine and 1 foot in holistic or functional medicine, but my pride and joy is just helping people achieve health from changing their lifestyle. I do subspecialize in hormone therapy, so happy to take questions on hormone therapy, on weight loss, metabolic health, whatever you guys have to offer. I organize a conference every year called Low Carb for Better Health. This will be our 4th year. It's at Montgomery-Vale State Park. This year it's on September 12th and 13th. The ticket site is up and running. It's lc4bh.com. Don't get me, Tyler, because I misspoke on it, but lc4bh.com. Tickets are ready to go. So please join us. This guy's going to be there. Ms. Nisha's going to be there. And we would love for all of you to join us. Personally, I have used a therapeutic carbohydrate restriction diet for 14 years. It's how I've achieved weight stability. It's how I've essentially reversed my autoimmune condition, psoriasis. So I'm happy to take questions on me personally, autoimmune conditions, and specifically psoriasis as well.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Ken Berry. I'm a family physician. I've been practicing family medicine for over 22 years now. The first 8 years I was in the clinic, but also full-time emergency room doctor as well. And then just focused on the clinic, and now I have a very small private practice, and predominantly I teach people how to eat a proper human diet now, online and in person. And what Amanda said about facts, we're just going to give you facts. And then what I just said, proper human diet. That both of those, you may be like, what? What are you talking about? Proper human diet? What do you mean facts? Are we being misled by other people? And I'm afraid that the answer is yes. Now, you know as well as I do that you can commit a sin accidentally, right? You didn't mean to, but you did, but you didn't really mean to. That's what most of our doctors and dietitians are doing these days. They're repeating what they were taught in medical school, if they even had a nutrition course. The dietitians are repeating, hey Chris, the dietitians are repeating what they were taught in their school of dietetics, which was sponsored, not joking, by Kellogg's or General Mills. Not a joke, actual fact. Like in the Kellogg's building, and then who pays for all the textbooks. And so I don't think there's a grand conspiracy. I don't think that Kellogg's and Kraft are out to kill you. I don't think that doctors are part of this big conspiracy trying to make you sick and miserable. But we all know that in just day-to-day life, you can make a decision, or you can make a slightly less good decision that will help you financially. It's not an evil decision. It's just a little less good than you could have made. We all know that. And in your line of work, you know, it's like, yeah, I could really do a good job, or I could sort of half-ass it. and I might save money or make money. That's what's going on in the real world. That's what's going on in medicine and nutrition. I think all of us are kind of aware of some foolishness that's happened in the last few years with regards to medicine and recommendations that we were given very strongly and maybe even threatened with. And now it turns out a lot of that stuff was not fact. But yet you were subjected to it, weren't you? You had to go through it. And you suffered because of it, maybe a little, maybe a lot. But you didn't really have a choice in the matter, or at least that's how it felt. Well, that's the same boat that the doctors and dietitians are in. When a doctor starts talking about a proper human diet, whether that's low carb or ketogenic or ketovore or carnivore, their colleagues might chastise them, might look down on them, might say, well, you're not towing the party line. That's not standard of care. But that doesn't make it wrong. In fact, it actually makes it factual. Because what Amanda and I were doing this evening, we're not going to make a penny doing this. And most doctors and dietitians are not going to roll out of bed unless they're going to make a penny or three. And then when you get to the corporate level, pharmaceuticals and food, they're not going to roll out of bed for less than $1 million, right? And so what we're here to do is to answer your questions, because I can promise you've all been given false information. And it may have been given to you with the best of intentions. That doesn't make it true. It's still false. And your health can suffer because of that. Does that make sense? And so what we're here is to try to clear up confusion. I have been studying human nutrition for the last 15 years. At first, I focused on the modern nutrition research. But then the more I looked at that and read that, and then always at the bottom of the study, who sponsored and paid for the study. Turns out that's quite important. Because if the Pomegranate Council, who's the lobby group for all the pomegranate farmers, if they have sponsored this study about pomegranate juice, guess what? It's not going to be a news story unless it showed something really, really good about pomegranate juice. See how that works? Now there's this problem in nutrition research called the file drawer problem. So if that pomegranate company funded, they gave $1 million to do this research, and then they did the study and it turned out it didn't help a bit, or maybe even hurt you a little bit, would that study be published? And would you see a news article about that study? No, that study would be put in the file drawer and nobody would ever speak of it again. And all the researchers actually sign NDAs that they would be sued if they spoke about that. That study's just gone. That happens very commonly. Less so now than in the past, but still happens. So what we're here to do is try to tell you that there is such a thing as a proper human diet. And the degree to which you learn about it, stick to it, and eat it, your health will improve to some degree. And the degree to which you ignore a proper human diet and don't stick to it, your health will suffer to a certain degree. Now, in the state of Tennessee, about 37% of adults are obese. 37%. You got 100 Tennesseans, 37 of them are obese.
Yeah, keep going.
Okay.
You're fine.
About 14% of adult Tennesseans have type 2 diabetes. Now, that's bad, but then let's talk about the children. Let's talk about the children. How many children, what should be the percentage of children with obesity? It should be close to zero if we're a healthy population and we're in fact eating a proper human diet. But you know as well as I know it ain't nowhere close to zero. What about type 2 diabetes in children? When I was a young doctor, there's no such thing as that. There might be one endocrinologist at Vandy, and he saw every type 2 diabetic child in the whole state, because there was 20 of them. Now it's super common. What about fatty liver in children? Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. That should not exist. There shouldn't be one Tennessean child who has fatty liver. But there's an entire clinic now in Memphis and one in Nashville just for children with NAFLD. That's how many there are. What's causing that? Since all of our bodies are literally built of what we eat and drink, it's my opinion that that plays the predominant role in these chronic diseases that should not exist at all in children and should be quite rare in adults. The food is playing a predominant role, and I'm not saying there's not other things, but that's the big thing. And that's the big thing. I think that's 80% of the equation. But more importantly, that's also something you can do something about. You can't do anything about your genetics, right? You can't do anything about how tall you are. If you're 5'2", then you can't weigh 200 pounds, or you're going to be obese. There just ain't no way around it. But you can start to think about your food. Every time you go to a supermarket and pick something up, you can read the ingredients. And if you don't know what a word is in the ingredients, first of all, that's a red flag. Because if it says meat, eggs, milk, salt, you know what that is. You're like, oh yeah, I know what that is. But when you see mono, dextro, hydro, tetra, chloro, Number 54. Should you even eat that? Probably not. But if you're going to eat it, let's look it up. That's what the internet's for. The internet is much more powerful than just watching kitten videos, right? We're all adults. We know how to use our phone. We can look something up, and if you read it and you're like, what the hell? It's also in paint. Then don't eat that, right? So I've got 1,500 videos on my YouTube channel talking about what a proper human diet is, what it ain't, the gimmicks, the tricks, how they mislead you, how doctors get it wrong, how dietitians get it wrong. And I could stand up here and talk for 4 hours straight, couldn't I?
Yes.
Yes, but I'm not going to. I want to take questions from you. So let me just say, just this one sentence. A proper human diet is low in carbohydrates. It is uninflammatory. It is ancestrally appropriate. It consists of only real whole foods. And it does not contribute to chronic disease. And it also doesn't contribute to corporate profits. Therefore, it's quite unpopular with mainstream media. So that's, in one sentence, that's what a proper human diet is. But I know that's, that seems a bit nebulous. So you ready for questions?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And because we want to get this out, feel free to take pictures, feel free to take little snippets and post it to your social medias as well so that more people want to come even next time. We're not shy from your publicity.
Yes, yeah, we'll take it.
And we do have a hard out tonight, so when I say out, we have to leave because if we don't, they'll kick us out for next time. So
We actually thrive on your publicity because, as you may have noticed, NBC and ABC, CNN, MSNBC, they're not here. They're not going to be. So that's why we do YouTube. That's why we do social media, because otherwise we would be home talking to the wall. Yes, ma'am.
What time is the hard
out is 8, but we'll probably finish before then.
Okay, just making sure.
All right, so questions. First of all, how many people have type 2 diabetes? 2, 3, 4. Gotcha. Okay, so we'll take questions about that. We'll take questions about fatty liver, obesity, high blood pressure, any metabolic condition, autoimmune conditions, anything. Dermatological, gynecological, all of it. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question on him.
She's throwing you under the bus to start.
No, we talked to you on a Zoom a couple months ago. He's been doing carnivore for over a year. His numbers are still a little high. His A1C just had checked, it was 6.9. We just cut out dairy totally. But my question to you is, he's been diabetic for like 25 plus years. Mm-hmm. Can it take longer than a year for his pancreas to recover?
Yes.
How long should it take?
Yeah.
how long can we put off not, he's off all his meds for that. How long can we do without the meds
Sure.
before he's gotta go on
So
something?
20 plus years of being a diabetic, and he's eating a carnivore diet. Now, does everybody know what that is? Anybody not know what that is? That's meat, eggs, seafood, plus or minus dairy. And she said we just took the dairy out. And there's reasons for that. Some people need to do that. Some people don't need to do that. What was his last fasting insulin? So his A1C still elevated. Ah, you got it. Beautiful, beautiful. Good, good. He brought his labs. That's a good patient. Yeah, let's see what you got. Are your arms long enough? No. So fasting insulin is 4.3. So that tells us something. He is not a type 1 diabetic. If he were, his insulin would be 0 or very close to it. So he's making enough insulin. And then that last A1C was,
It's all
here,
there.
okay.
Do you need your glasses?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
It's pretty good.
You should just call them
A1C
supplemental.
6.9. What was the one before?
Say,
6.9. Gotcha. And then fructosamine also high.
and the only thing about that is, every once in a while, he eats a little something.
Yeah.
And a couple weeks before
Yeah.
that, he had some soft taco shell,
Yeah,
3/4
yeah.
Not
ounce.
strict carnivore.
Not strict carnivore. And from this fructosamine and this A1C, so if
He's pretty strict, but every once in a while, he'll eat something.
yes,
Once a month.
yes,
Maybe once a month.
yes.
He's more keto.
Gotcha.
He's
So-
more keto.
The problem is when you're talking to a doctor who knows what they're doing, when they see this A1C and then they see this fasting insulin, and then they see this fructosamine, every now and then is a relative term.
Right,
It's
Right.
right. Some people it means 3 times a day. Some people it means once a month. And so there's still too many carbs in this diet. Now, if his fasting insulin had been 0, he's type 1. He needs to be on
Right.
insulin. If his fructosamine had been normal, then his red blood cells are living longer because he's eating an all-meat diet.
oddly enough, his red blood cells and his white blood cells were kind of low, a little bit low.
Gotcha, which is irrelevant for
Yeah.
this. But did you know that you can eat a diet that will make your red blood cells live longer than they would otherwise? You ever heard that in your life?
No.
Did you know you can also eat a diet that will make your red blood cells die faster? Absolutely true. A carnivore diet is part of a proper human diet. That's one end of the spectrum. Nothing but meat, eggs, and seafood. Nothing but eggs, meat, and seafood. So if he were doing that, his fructosamine, his A1C, his fasting insulin would tell me that.
Well,
So
I do have to say, he has been really, really good. Just, I
I
mean,
believe you.
once every, he's saying once a month, I don't think it's that, because I'm the one that feeds him. So,
Gotcha, yeah,
it's really once every couple months. or so.
gotcha. So the food that you eat can make your A1C go up and make you a type 2 diabetic. If you change that food to other food and eat it, it'll make your A1C go back down. Same for your insulin. Most doctors don't even check an insulin level. Even in you folks that raise your hand and said, I have diabetes, they don't check your insulin. How do they know you're not a type 1 if they don't know how much insulin you're making? How do they know you're not hyperinsulinemic unless they check your insulin level? So for those of you who raise your hand, next time you go to the doctor, say, why don't you check my damn insulin level while you're at it? That might be a good idea. Okay? But we can talk more about his.
Okay.
Part of your question was, does it take a long time for some people?
Right,
It
right.
can,
right.
yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It can take a very long
Yeah.
time.
We're
for the
working
body
on
to
it, and we're trying really hard not to go back on medication.
And in his case, he might should get back on metformin or glucophage, or even just berberine as a supplement.
He's been doing berberine.
Perfect.
We're doing all the stuff. We're doing iodine,
Good,
berberine,
good.
apple cider vinegar tablets, liver pills. We've
So-
been doing this a long
Sometimes you can
time.
do all this stuff.
We're doing it
You
all.
can do all this stuff. You can sleep right. You can work on your stress. You can eat the right things, but you can't erase all the 20 years.
Right, right.
And
Right,
so, you
right.
know, I would check a C-peptide as well.
That's
She got
it.
one.
She did.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah,
So then, yeah, it may just be that
yeah, it's gonna take.
this is
May
going
just
to
take
take more
time.
time, or
Okay.
this may also be as good as it gets, and
So-
we're managing.
At what point, so I have a CGM, and so I'm tracking it all the time.
Sure.
So my time in, now I lowered the range to go from 70 to 160. My time in range is running about 90%. Am I hurting myself?
As long as when you're running above 140, 150, you're doing microscopic damage. Okay, so for any of you guys, if your A1C is above 5.6, you're doing a little bit of damage every day. And a lot of your doctors will say, oh yeah, it's 6.2, that's good, that's fine, let's keep it there. You're gonna die sooner. You're not gonna die tomorrow, but you're gonna die soon. You might lose a year or two because of that. Nobody wants to do that, right? So let's talk about that one in the group some more. But yeah, she's exactly right. It might take another 6 months for him to keep coming down slowly but surely. But we might need to bump up the berberine.
Okay.
Yeah, I would probably do that for now. If not, get back on
Can I
board.
ask you, we just started doing the liver supplements. On the bottle, it says to take 6 pills a day. Do you have to take 6 pills a day?
No.
Is 2 enough?
Yeah,
What's
2 to
the-
4 is that's
Okay,
fine. Six of those is like eating 2 ounces of liver.
okay,
And so if you only take 3, then you ate 1 ounce of liver.
okay. But
Yeah.
like if you're doing just like mostly meat and eggs and stuff, you're already getting a lot of those nutrients, so you don't
Yeah.
need to. Okay.
Exactly. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
So a vitamin C deficiency question.
Okay.
I have been keto, carnivore, but mostly keto for the last probably 3 years. Went more carnivore in the last 3 months.
Yep.
And back in November, I was getting broken blood vessels just randomly. On my feet, my toes, fingers, eye, like just random.
Yep.
And so I asked my doctor if she would run some blood tests to find out what's going on.
Yep.
Asked if I could do the vitamin C and vitamin K levels.
Sure.
She added those, and I'm vitamin C deficient.
Okay.
She wants me to do like 1,000 milligrams a day, daily.
Mhm.
Just this last week, I decided because when I take it at night, my stomach gets a little queasy, so I thought it was, maybe I'm good now.
Yep.
And then today I noticed I have another little random bruise. So.
And so anybody your age is going to get bruises. The goal is not to be. Yeah, that's right. Anybody my age is going to get bruises. I can show you mine from the farm. If you want to get enough vitamin C, you can eat 1/4 of a bell pepper every 3 or 4 days, and that's going to give you all the vitamin C you need. How do you like your steaks cooked?
It's a medium. I don't want it to move.
Right. So the more you cook meat, did you know that meat actually contains a little bit of vitamin C? Did you know that? If you cook it to death, the more you cook it, the less of the vitamin C is left. And so you don't necessarily need it moving, but it needs to be a little pink, not red. There's vitamin C in that. And when you're eating a very low carbohydrate diet, you don't need nearly as much vitamin C as if you're eating a high carb diet, because all carbohydrates break down into
Sugar.
sugar, and sugar competes with vitamin C to get inside the cell. Okay, so in your case, you just, if you like bell peppers, you could just buy 2 a week and just have a half a bell pepper every 2 or 3 days. That's all you need to get your vitamin C up.
Okay. Is
Yeah.
it possible that I went that low because of the medication I could be
It
taking?
could, it's any number of causes. But for most people on carnivore, if they like their steak still moving just a little bit, and they'll eat some liver every now and then, they get all the vitamin C they need.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've been carnivore for 8 years, and my vitamin C levels are still fine, and I don't take any supplement. I would caution you not to take a high dose of a vitamin C supplement. They can be pretty high in oxalates, and they can actually contribute to kidney stones and stuff. Yeah.
If you're using a CGM and taking vitamin C, it's going to be off. It competes and throws the sugar
Yeah.
off too.
Okay. Yeah, because this past month, I've been doing much stricter with carnivore. Started at Christmas as a Christmas present
Yeah.
with the iodine. And I usually am very difficult to lose weight, and
Yeah.
I'm proud to say 7 pounds as of this morning,
Congratulations.
for just this month.
Now, in these two questions, you've heard us talk about several supplements, some of which you may have never heard of in your life. That's okay, don't worry about that. The 80% of the benefit that you're gonna get is just from avoiding frankenfood, pseudo food, sort of food, and eating real food. That's gonna get you 80% of your benefits. Then we can talk about supplements later. Supplements are not the answer, but sometimes you use them to tweak. Does that make sense? Would you like to share what you've benefited from keto and now carnivore?
In keto, I would lose maybe about, which I've always been very difficult to lose weight. 2 years ago, I even tried to do the Trulicity. My son was getting married, wanted to lose maybe 20 pounds before the wedding. All he did was make me sick. And I was like, after 2.5 months, I said, I am tired of feeling sick to my stomach every time I take an injection. And so started to delve even further into learning more about the low carb diet. And yeah, I really didn't know how difficult it was for me to lose weight on dairy. And it's like, there's all these little triggers that are now, just this past month, that I'm like, okay, so I do beef, butter, and bacon, and that's all I do so far for this month. And it's amazing the difference in how I feel. I don't have that, like my gut feels better.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of food allergies, which obviously are probably not food allergies, but the toxins that the plants are trying to kill me. So.
Yes. Other questions? Who's got the next one?
Do you need to do a live nation?
Oh, you want to? Do you have any good ones? from the audience?
Everybody's just enjoying you talking right now. I did have one that asked, "How do you develop type 1 as an adult?"
So type 1 diabetes is when your pancreas no longer makes insulin. It just stops. Or it gets so low that it's not enough to keep your blood sugar and other things controlled. That's typically a childhood disease. That typically starts at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years of age, but it can happen in adults as well. It's usually an autoimmune condition that happens later in life. You might already be a type 2 diabetic, but then all of a sudden your sugars are really crazy. And the medicine that used to help is no longer helping. And then when a doctor finally checks your insulin, they're like, oh my God, you're a type 1 diabetic. How did I not know that? Well, because you didn't check the insulin. That's why you didn't know that. And so it can happen in adults, and that's typically how it happens as an autoimmune condition. Yeah. Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Could you please explain insulin resistance?
Yeah.
So she's asking
So-
to explain
yes.
insulin resistance.
Thank you,
She's supposed
Amanda.
to be repeating the question.
Thank you.
I get carried away. I want to go fast. So I hate the term insulin resistance because it's not a thing. It's the absence of a thing. I like to name stuff what it actually is because then the solution's in the title. Like type 2 diabetes, that doesn't help you at all. What if I said, let's rename type 2 diabetes as carbohydrate overdose syndrome? Then you'd be like, so therefore, right? See how that's like, oh yeah, okay. So I talk about hyperinsulinemia. Because if you have insulin resistance, your insulin level, when your doctor finally checks it, is going to be high. And so high blood sugar is dangerous. That's going to hurt you. But high insulin is also dangerous. And if a doctor doesn't check it, then they don't know if you have it. Okay? And so what this means is a lot of people try to say, well, your receptors and then you're lost. You don't know what anybody's talking about. Here's how to understand insulin resistance, aka hyperinsulinemia. If you eat too many carbohydrates, because all carbohydrates turn into sugar. If you eat too many carbohydrates too often, too consistently, then in order to deal with that load of sugar, your pancreas is going to have to put out more insulin. It's going to have to put out too much insulin because you're eating too many carbohydrates. So the way to fix hyperinsulinemia is to lower the carbohydrates. And then your pancreas is like, thank God. And then it doesn't have to make as much insulin. And that goes back to normal as well. So think about hyperinsulinemia rather than insulin resistance. Because insulin resistance sounds like a disease you're stuck with, you got it for life. Oh, I just have insulin resistance. That's not the case. If you eat strict enough, low carb enough, long enough, consistently enough, your insulin will come back to normal.
Well, there are some conditions that are not nutrition-based that can worsen that, though. It's like menopause in women.
Yes.
We become a little bit more stubborn with our insulin and start to produce more chronic stress. Makes you produce more insulin through the cortisol response. Not sleeping well. Those things also create more insulin.
Also
which does all
husbands.
of that.
Husbands can do that as well.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Good questions. Who's next? Yes, ma'am.
I have kind of a complicated question, but I had gastric bypass like 23 years ago. And I've pretty well done low carb, but I do, protein shake because I struggle to get enough to eat.
Sure.
But in the spring I got really sick and I couldn't figure out what was wrong. So I didn't want to go to a medical doctor because I knew they just tried to give me pills. So
Feel free to come see me.
I should. But I did the function health test online, and I got on my biomarkers, and I was deficient in 9 things. And they found I had the MTHFR gene.
Yep.
And so I'm struggling with the folate and the iron. But for the last 6 months, I've been supplementing, changing my diet and everything, and all my numbers have come way up.
Yeah.
Except I'm struggling with iron still,
Mm.
and that's part of that intrinsic factor. But I wanted to ask about cholesterol. All my numbers are great except the cholesterol, and I won't take a statin. My entire life it's been high, around 250
Mhm.
all my life. No matter what, even when I was heavy and they gave me Propofol, and it made me feel like I was dying.
Yeah.
So I won't take that. So I'm doing nattokinase now.
Yep.
As a supplement. But I'm not so sure those numbers are correct. In that, when we used to eat normally, our cholesterol was higher. We need cholesterol for our brain, our hormones, everything.
Yes.
So what is your take on what they meant, like the way they say the numbers are in your blood test on cholesterol?
So, been low carb for years, had gastric bypass years ago. All your numbers are pretty decent, but your cholesterol is still high.
Yeah.
And that's a very common thing. So if you took 100 people and put them all on a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet, about 33 of them, their cholesterol would go down. About 33 of them, their cholesterol would stay the same. About 33 of them, their cholesterol would go up. And about 1%, their cholesterol would go sky high. Yes, ma'am.
Can you repeat the question?
I did.
He did.
I
Okay.
did.
So Marcia asked.
Oh, yeah,
And I
Marshall.
was
Go
reading.
back and watch the replay.
Sorry, Marshall.
So, not everybody who goes keto or carnivore, their cholesterol goes up. It's only about a third of people. Okay? Now, then the question becomes, is that bad? Is that relevant? Now, so here's what she kind of intimated this. All of the research about high cholesterol and statins being good for that and protecting you from heart attack and early death, all of that research was designed, produced, sponsored by the companies that sell the statin medications. Now, I'm not a conspiratorialist, but human nature is what it is, right? If you're a mechanic and somebody's motor's about shot but not quite shot, and you got a car payment to make, guess what that person needs? They need a new motor. It's human nature, right? That applies all the way to the top. They're still humans, even though some people accuse them of being reptilian. They're humans. They've got to get paid. So a lot of people have went back and looked at this research with fresh eyes and looked at the sponsorship and looked at all that, and they've said, actually, if you're otherwise metabolically healthy, your labs are good, you feel good, your energy's good, it's probably not a big deal. You probably don't need a statin. You probably don't need Repatha or Praluent. You probably don't need that at all. In fact, when they really crunch the numbers, if you have high cholesterol and you take a statin, high dose statin, every day for 20 years, how long do you think that prolongs your life?
2 days.
3 to 5 days. If you take it every single year with all the side effects that are going to come with it, you might get 3 to 5 extra days of life. But are we going to talk about the quality of life while you're taking this pill for 20 years? What did the Pravachol, how did it make you feel?
Your joints, it's like you got the flu.
You feel like you've been beat with a bat?
You know, some people it doesn't do that to.
That's
but
right.
A lot of people it does.
Yeah.
It's awful.
So then the question becomes, well, quality of life, I'd like to not feel like donkey do for 20 years to get 3 extra days, right? And a lot of people decide not to do that. But many of them, the medical lab values, people are like, well, my vitamin C's low, or this or that. Well, where did those numbers even come from? They probably got thousands of people and checked their labs and then averaged that. No. A lot of these labs are set on, they took 100 people's blood and said, okay, 2 standard deviations, there you go, that's the normal range. It's not really rocket science how they did it. And also they did it on what I call bread eaters. Everybody that,
Healthy.
yeah, they're seemingly healthy, right? But they were eating a high carb diet that was inflammatory. And so we can't really trust those numbers. That's the problem. That's why medicine's going to have to completely reinvent itself. And I think you're already seeing the early stages of that now. There are more and more healthcare practitioners who are stepping outside the classic model saying, this is stupid. I can't do this. I've got a conscience. I've got morals. I've got principles. I can no longer do this circle jerk for the insurance companies. I'm sorry. I'm just going to step out and do it a different way. And every day we're seeing more and more people like that.
And in our practice, well, my practice now, since I've stepped out, we're going to do an advanced lipid panel and go over that with you. So you're going to see the particle sizes and look at the ratio of those particle sizes. We're going to do your inflammatory markers and go over that and make an informed decision together. But let's back up to the first part of your story where you're talking about the gastric bypass and basically your inability to absorb nutrients. So I would really microdose my nutrients and spread them out throughout my meals. And when I microdose my nutrients, I haven't had gastric bypass, but I do it anyways. I have all of my organ meats ground up in my ground beef. And so every time I have a little bit of ground beef, I'm getting a little bit of my micronutrients, getting a little bit more of my iron. And if you're doing it slower that way, you're going to get more absorption because you just can't absorb very much.
Yeah, especially after a gastric bypass, this is how you need to do it. So how many people in here love liver? Raise your hand up high.
What's wrong with you people?
2.5 people. That's okay, but she just gave you one of the best health hacks you'll ever hear in your life. When you buy ground beef, tell your meat guy, the manager or the butcher or whoever, to grind up. What do you do? 2 to 1 or 3 to 1?
So I buy a cow and I have all of my organs put into any ground beef.
So if you buy a whole cow, just have it put the organs in, grind it in with the ground beef. You cannot taste it. You do not know it's there. Tell the butcher to lie to you that he didn't do it. And then you'll be okay with it, and you'll never know because you can't taste it. But there's so much nutrition in liver. People don't realize because you're not taught this. People think blueberries are a superfood, or Aussie berries, or kale, or all spinach, broccoli. If you compare the amount of nutrition in liver to any of those things I just said, liver wins hands down. It's 10x the amount of nutrition, the amount of vitamins and minerals. But not a lot of people like it because we're not raised on it like people were in the past, right? And so have it ground in with your ground beef. You cannot tell it's there. And and then your hamburger becomes a literal superfood. At that point, it's sugar-free, almost zero carb, full of protein you need, full of healthy animal fats you need, full of vitamins, full of minerals. Voila, you got a freezer full of ground beef, and it's a superfood. You don't even know it.
You almost walked me in the face.
Almost.
We were taught for years that liver would contain a lot of toxins.
So
Because its job is to remove toxins.
yeah, so very common myth. The question is, but does the liver contain toxins because it filters the blood? So no, that's completely and totally false. Your liver is not a filter. That's not how the liver works. It's not how it works in any animal. The liver is not a storage depot for toxins. It's not true at all, okay? The liver tags toxins, which are then removed by the kidneys or removed through the biliary system. The liver does not store toxins. It does not filter toxins. That is untrue. Does that help anybody go, oh, well, maybe I'll try it then? The liver is not a filter. It's not how it works. You do get home, look it up. Look at Wikipedia. Now, I don't trust them for many things, but they're right about this. They'll tell you, actually, no, the liver does the following things, which are super complicated, but it's not a filter.
Since we're on liver, as you can tell by looking at me, I'm fairly old. Well, back in the 50s, when Weight Watchers first came out, one of their recommendations was, which is my problem right now, is because if you have sagging skin from losing weight, they recommend you to eat liver once a week. Is there anything at all that you found out recently?
That does liver help with saggy skin?
Yeah.
Yeah, liver is a superfood, but it's not a superhero. It's not magic.
Right.
Yeah, no.
But I'm just telling you what Weight Watchers, back in the 50s.
Gotcha. So liver does contain everything you need to make healthy skin cells. It's not going to help tighten the skin. The thing that's going to do that is autophagy. It's a big word. How many of, I know everybody here enjoys eating. How many of you enjoy not eating? Yeah, we got some fasters in here. Beautiful. So many of you probably have never went more than 8 hours your entire life without eating. It's weird to not eat. You're like, what do you mean not eat? It's actually very good for you and very therapeutic. And if you're having trouble losing weight and you're doing a lot of things right, but it's still not coming off, adding some daily intermittent fasting or a 1 day or 2 day fast once a week sounds crazy. Your doctor probably never recommended that, but it's completely healthy, completely fine, completely ancestrally appropriate. Not dangerous, not bad, won't hurt you at all, but it also increases the rate of autophagy, which is your body digesting cells that are old or in disrepair or that you don't need anymore. That's what loose skin is. And Misha and I, we know people who've lost over 200 pounds on keto, ketogenic, carnivore, and because they intermittent fasted, did a long 2 day fast once a week or a 3 day fast every other week, they look like they were never overweight. Their skin is just as tight as somebody who was never overweight. And so watch my fasting videos.
I'm on 1 meal a day right now.
Beautiful. OMAD, 1 meal a day. Who in this room does that sound crazy? You just eat 1 meal a day? Yeah, that's perfectly healthy and fine. It mimics how our ancestors lived. Now, if you're trying to do that on a high carb diet, you'll starve to death. You'll be eating your shoe to get it to leather. That's right. But if you're eating a diet that's full of healthy fat and healthy protein and low carbohydrates, fasting becomes much, much easier. Fun for some people. They raise their hand. They weren't joking, and I didn't pay them to say that.
In our weight management practice, though, we use 16-8, 18-6 fasting all the time, intermittent fasting, but I haven't seen that help with the skin as much.
Takes a
You
long
really
time.
have
Takes
to
a
push
year.
past. Well,
Takes a
no,
year.
I'm saying, yeah, you really
Yeah.
get more effectiveness pushing to that 20, 24 hour, 36
Yeah.
for skin.
Yeah. And it's not going to be fast. If you want it fixed fast, go see the plastic surgeon. If you say, I don't care if it takes a year or two, then do what she says. Yeah.
I was going to say, how long of a fast before concerned about refeeding syndrome?
7 to 10 days. 7 to 10 days. And I'm not a big advocate of long fasts like that. Some people love it. And for many people, it's spiritual. And it's completely safe and fine. But about 7 days, you might want to touch base with your doctor, get some labs, maybe wear a continuous glucose monitor, a CGM. How many you got a CGM on right now? Yeah, I got a few. Okay. But if you want to do a 2 day fast, 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, zero danger. Unless you're a type 1 diabetic and you decide to just do it on your own, that'd be dumb. But if anybody else in the world can do it 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, zero danger.
And I wouldn't suggest going straight from 16 to 18 hours to 7 days. That's going to be torture and bad. So I would ease my way into it.
Yep.
We'll start with that 20, then 24 hours, and then to 36, and then to 72. Ease into it.
Yep.
Me to dominate, but I have a lot. I started this journey concerned about fatty liver disease. You want to talk anything about fatty liver?
Yeah.
There's
So
some fat around your organs.
when I was first in medical school, the first few years, there's always been fatty liver. But do you know what caused it back in 2000, 1999, 2000, 2001, what caused fatty liver? Alcohol. Yeah. And then we started in the early 2000s and later, we started seeing people who are like swearing to God in heaven, I don't drink at all. I don't drink. But they still had documented fatty liver on ultrasound or CAT scan or MRI. Where's that? Now it's an epidemic. Right now, it's soon to become the leading cause of liver fat. Yeah. So what's up with that? Where'd that come from? It's the carbs. It's the sugar. Everything's got sugar added. Everybody's drinking sugar with everything. Drinking sugar, eating sugar with a side of sugar with sugar on top. Your liver cannot take all that sugar. And in some people who are susceptible, they develop fatty liver much faster. There's also fatty pancreas, which is really, really bad. Fatty tongue, which is most people with sleep apnea have fatty tongue and fatty neck. There's also fatty lung, fatty kidney, and fatty heart. These are all documented things, but you don't hear doctors talk about them very often. The fatty pancreas, I actually heard a radiologist, that's somebody who reads x-rays and studies. I did a YouTube video about fatty pancreas, and I asked a radiologist, and he said, oh, dude, we see fatty streaks in the pancreas. That's so common, we don't even mention it on our reports. Everybody's got that. Like it was normal. And I was like, yeah, I believe that, but that's bad. That's not good. You should be putting that on your radiology reports so the primary care doctor would know. He's like, well, I didn't figure anybody would care because literally 9 out of 10 people have it. That's how common this stuff is, and doctors are unaware. They don't even know that fatty pancreas is important. They don't even know what that means. So nobody's coming to save you. You got to take the first step and take your own initiative. Come see Amanda, watch my YouTube videos, read a book, read 5 books. You can listen to them on Audible if you need to, like me and my friend here. Yeah. But you can't just blindly trust your doctor anymore. Those days are gone. Okay, back in the 1940s you could because they didn't know enough to be dangerous. But now any good doctor knows enough to be dangerous, and that's not a good thing. And more healthcare providers, doctors are coming around and saying, "I'm out of that. I'm out of that game." But the average doctor is still right in the middle of that game, and they don't know better. They're not part of the evil. They just are in it. They're stuck in it. Yeah. Ignorance and evil can look a lot alike if you don't know what the root cause is.
I have a statin question. My brother-in-law had a heart attack. He has a couple stents put in. I have been hearing all this stuff, so he's on statin. He went to his cardiologist. The cardiologist said, because you have stents and all the studies I've read and everything, you really need to go to statin. Is that a true statement? So
if you've never had a heart attack, never had a bypass, never had a stent put in, then everything I said about statins earlier applies to you. If you've had a heart attack or a bypass or a stent placed, now you're taking a statin not for primary prevention. You're taking it for secondary prevention. In that case, the research is more clear that there probably is some benefit to take at least a low-dose statin. So for your brother who had bypass or stents, he probably needs to take at least a low-dose statin. But he needs to take 200 milligrams of CoQ10 a day, every day along with it, because one of the many things statins do is they just tank your CoQ10 level. Okay. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I had a CAC test done in August, and the plaque score came back 1177.
1177 on the CAC score.
Yes.
Okay.
Question, is that reversible in any shape or form?
So I got a CAC, and the score was really high, and my doctor lost his, right? Yes. Okay. Is that reversible? Can I do anything about that? So there are many experts who say yes. Now, the American College of Cardiology and the American Heart Association say no. Take your statin, take all your medicine, take your pills, take your blood pressure medicine, and it is what it is. But I and my cardiology colleagues who understand the proper human diet, interventional radiology colleagues have seen people like you adopt and stick to a proper human diet very, very strictly. And then they recheck the CAC every 12 months. And the doctor who invented the CAC score says that the average person's CAC score is going to go up 20% a year. That's just average. So if you get yours rechecked in 12 months and it only went up 10%, you're winning. But what happens in many cases like yours is it stays the same or it even goes down as you check it year to year. And so you need to be probably ketogenic or carnivore, pretty strict, and then recheck it every 12 months, and you're going to see that number not go up 20% a year. Okay? So this is plaque in the heart arteries, right? He's got plaque buildup. Now, if his doctor knew he was on, what are you doing now, keto or carnivore?
Carnivore.
Carnivore. If his doctor knew that, he would say, that damn meat caused that. In what, 2 or 3 years? It didn't have anything to do with the toaster strudel and the honey buns and the ding dongs he's been eating for the last 50 years. That didn't have a thing to do with it. It's funny, but it's not a joke. But it is funny. It's like, you think that happened in 2 or 3 years? No. So we've seen hundreds of people like you with their CAC either flatline and stay the same, or start to go down slowly but surely. The calcified plaques are not the dangerous plaques. The soft, inflamed plaques, those are the ones that will rupture and kill you, right? So the fact that all yours are calcified, and you can talk to your doctor about how to verify that, that's actually not that dangerous. Anybody else?
Do you feel like nattokinase is a good supplement?
It's now some experts recommend nattokinase to try to reverse those plaques. They think that can reach in and kind of pull that out. Maybe, it might. I'm not convinced that it does. It's fairly expensive, and it might do that or it might not. Here's the thing. If I cut my arm, and then it heals, I got a scab for a week, and then I got that big red scar, and then, right, and I actually did that when I was in 2nd grade. I've still got that scar there. Do you think if I took nattokinase, it would make my scar go away? Probably not. That calcification in your heart artery, that's not active disease. That's not an evil thing trying to kill you. That's a scar. You had inflammation in that artery. And then you used cholesterol to spackle that until it healed, and then you had soft plaque built up. And then when that calmed down and healed, then you had it calcified. That's part of the healing process. So when you think about it that way, you're like, I mean, maybe it does, but that'd be kind of weird if it didn't make my scar go away. Why would it make your scar go away? But it might. We need more research on it. But I'm not opposed to it. I don't think it's going to hurt you at all.
Our friends in cardiology are also starting to look at environmental toxins and helping to reverse inflammation in the cardiac pathway and potentially reduce CAC scores. So, do you have plastics? Do you have glyphosate in your system? Whatever molds and toxins and things are in there, because it's not always what you ate, even though you probably ate a lot of bad stuff in your life. It may also be things that you were exposed to, or you're still being exposed to, that you need to get out of your life.
Here's the main problem with medicine. They did the research and said, oh, this statin, that's it. That's the bell ringer. That's the home run. And everybody said, okay, fine, we'll just put people on statin. Nobody has asked the question that this smart gentleman just asked. I've got plaque. Can I reverse that? Nobody thought to ask. All the doctors were like, I'll just put him on statin. There you go. Eat a low-fat diet. Low salt, low fat. Enjoy. That's it. That's literally how the doctors have been thinking for the last 20, 30 years. It was easy. And it was not only easy, but it was approved. It was standard of care to be lazy. Think about that. It was standard of care to just be lazy and just follow the guidelines and not think and not do any extra research. You were kind of kooky if you did extra research. Why would you do that? Why aren't you playing golf? That's why That's why we are necessary now, is because medicine basically dropped the ball for the last 30, 40, 50 years on many different things. Just like the ball was dropped over the last few years that we all lived through. I think we can all agree that multiple balls were dropped multiple times from 2020 to the present. That basically what that did was pull back the curtain and let you see the little man back there was not actually a wizard. He's just a dude. And that's what we lived through the last few years. It's done that to medicine. There's no wizards, there's no magic. It's just dudes and chicks doing the best they can sometimes, but usually just kind of doing enough to get by. That's where we're at. That's why we have to have things like this and talk about this and help educate people. Does that make sense? Yes, ma'am.
I have familial hypercholesterolemia in my family.
Yep.
And also the high level protein, little a.
Yep.
I am not so much concerned about me at my age, but I am concerned about my kids.
Yep.
Particularly my son, who's 48, and they put him on a statin, and all his liver enzymes went crazy.
Yeah.
Took him off it. What is your thinking on that subject with the trying to, because it's like you're all gonna die earlier. It's
Exactly.
concerning. I mean, I got to be my age. I'd like to see my kids.
Yes, absolutely. So my friend here has familial hypercholesterolemia, which is a genetic condition where her cholesterol just runs really high, no matter what she does, right? And her son has it. He's been confirmed, and he tried to take a statin, and his liver enzymes went off the chart because statins are hard on your liver. It shows up more so in some people than others. So I actually have interviewed Dr. David Diamond on my YouTube channel more than once about this, and he has videos. Dr. David Diamond, just like the diamond in a ring, familial hypercholesterolemia. You also have a clotting defect as part of the genetic defect. It's not the high cholesterol that makes people with FH die prematurely. It's the clotting defect. But since there was an easy solution, oh, you've got FH, put her on a big high-dose statin, put her on Repatha, right? There we go, we're done. They forgot about the clotting disorder that also goes along with that genetic mutation. So nobody's been treating that, or not many people. So check out Dr. David Diamond's videos, and I think it'll help you understand it's not the cholesterol. That's not what's causing it.
You have the lipoprotein little a, is that the that you're talking about?
No, it's not. No, this is a completely different pathway. So also two other lab values you may have heard of are ApoB and LP(a). Now, if you're not into this nutrition and medicine stuff, you're like, I never heard of that in my life. And that's fine. You don't have to know about it. But for people who have heard of it, I've looked into these as deep as I can go in the research, and I'm not convinced that they're anything but experimental at this point. Does anybody remember a few years back the lab test TMAO? Anybody remember that? It was super popular for a minute. Like, oh, if you eat red meat, your TMAO is going to be high, super high risk of heart attack. it's a new test. We haven't had the hundreds of thousands of people that we can go back and crunch all the numbers and know, oh, my CAC's 10 versus my CAC's 200. Is that twice as bad, 10 times as bad, 100 times? I don't know. Nobody knows yet. We'll know that answer one day, but we don't currently know that answer, I don't believe.
Sorry, I was fixing my phone. My
No.
son decided to call in.
Ah, thanks.
Way to go, Brooklyn.
Other questions? Anybody in the back got a question? You guys have been very quiet back there. Yes, sir.
Salt.
Salt.
How important is it in our human diet, and does that change with keto or carnivore?
Yes. So how many are eating a low salt diet on purpose? Anybody? Right. Good. Salt. Let me not beat around the bush here. Salt is good for you. Everybody needs salt every day. If I was like the old televangelist, remember, put your hand on the television. If I could reach into your body and pull out every salt molecule in your body, you would die in less than 60 seconds. Salt is mandatory, it is essential, it is required. How do you know how to get enough salt? How do you know you're not getting too much? How do you know you're not getting enough? There's this very expensive, very sensitive biochemical machine that we have. It's been in research and development for a long damn time. Anybody know what it is? Your tongue. If your food tastes too salty, then you used to put too much salt. If it doesn't taste salty enough, you need to add salt. There is no research that shows that salting your food to taste is not the best way to go. There's no research that disproves that. Nowhere. Anywhere in the world, and I've looked. Okay? Now, your salt needs might change from day to day. With the stages of life. As you get older, you may need more, not enough. How will you know? Well, you've got this very sophisticated, complicated, biochemical, your taste buds can change. If you need more salt, your tongue will tell you this is not salty enough. Does that make sense? The human body is a miraculous thing. But medicine would have you believe that you're broken, that you've got bad genetics, that you're broken, that you need Pfizer and Merck to help you. That's just not true.
I was having blood pressure issues some years ago, and they kept putting me on these blood pressure pills. Come to find out, my potassium and sodium would get off and magnesium. And,
Yeah.
and once I make sure I stay hydrated,
Yep.
you know, and my electrolytes, my blood pressure's fine.
Yeah, she was on a blood pressure medicine and it messed up her electrolytes. Super common. Virtually every blood pressure medicine, at least part of its mechanism of action, is mucking around with your sodium, potassium, and other electrolytes. That's how they work, most of them. So, yeah, taking something that mucks around with your electrolytes and makes you pee out water that your body would otherwise want to hold, that doesn't sound like a good idea. Now, if you're eating a high-carb diet, lots of sugar, you probably need that. Because you're probably holding extra water because of the hyperinsulinemia. You're probably holding extra unhealthy water. But if you've converted to a low carbohydrate diet that's not inflammatory, then it's going to mess up your electrolytes. Yeah. Any questions about women questions? You got one online? Okay.
Yeah. Mike wants to know, how often should someone get their fasting insulin checked? Is it on the same schedule as the A1C?
So how often should you get your fasting insulin checked? It depends. If you're in your 20s and you're perfectly healthy and you have no problems, you don't need to check at all. But if you're a type 2 diabetic and you're trying to get healthier, you're trying to reverse your type 2 diabetes, then you need to check it every 3 to 6 months.
Unless you're on insulin.
Unless you're on insulin, then you cannot check a fasting insulin. You have to check another test called a C-peptide. Anybody type 1 diabetic or injecting insulin currently? So if you wanted to know if you're eating too many carbohydrates, you would check a C-peptide. And if it's normal, then you're not. If it's high, you are. Because C-peptide is literally 1-to-1. Every time you make an insulin molecule, you make a C-peptide. Then they break apart. So you would check the C-peptide. Everybody else in the room would check their fasting insulin. Yeah. Any questions about children? I see one back there being very well behaved. Women's, pregnant, breastfeeding, any kind of questions like that at all? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about diet and autism and ADHD.
Yeah.
I have a grandchild that is autistic, it's high functioning autistic, but still autistic. And I have two that have ADHD, and seems that red honey is the only concern of the parents.
Yeah, that's what they do.
At my house, they eat much less crap than they do everywhere else.
Yeah. So, got a child with autism, high functioning, and a couple with ADHD, and the parents are just concerned about the red dye. So, there's two schools of thought about this. If you just listen to mainstream media, you just think, oh, it's genetic. Nothing caused it, nothing we can do about it. But if you're a crunchy mom, right, you pay attention to that side of the aisle, then you're thinking, oh, it's the food coloring, it's the preservatives, it's the BHT, it's the, it's all these weird things. Those things might play a role. I'm not saying they don't, but I am saying I don't see any research that would support that. But I know hundreds of children with autism, especially if they're high functioning. If you get them on a ketogenic diet, therapeutic ketogenic, and you don't have to do it overnight. You don't have to be a Nazi. You do it over 3 or 4 months. Just keep cutting the carbs. Their behavior, their ability to think and to communicate, it's like they blossom. Same for ADHD. I have ADHD, and you might have picked up on that. I don't know. I can't stand still, but on carnivore, pretty high fat carnivore, I don't even think about taking medicine for my ADHD. I've actually kind of ordered my life so that it's kind of a superpower, that I can just flip from thing to thing to thing. Right? Focus on that, forget that. Focus on this, forget that. That's what I do.
Still annoying.
It's annoying for my wife. Yes. But back when I was a kid eating a high carb diet, I was uncontrollable. Like literally when I was in first grade, during recess, I had to go to the principal's office. I couldn't even go out and play with the kids. For literally half the year, I just had to go sit in the principal's office for however long. So it felt like 3 days. I'm sure it was 40 minutes or something. That's how bad it was. Now I don't have to sit in the principal's office, but I still have ADHD. But it doesn't affect me negatively like it used to. So yeah, don't make fun of the red dye thing. There may be a little bit to that, but I don't think that's the primary cause.
Think of ketones as just calming the brain. It's giving a different fuel source other than sugar that is way more calm. It's also way more stable. It's not hitting spikes and ups and downs and things like that. If you want a resource to send them to, there's a podcast called Life's Best Medicine. It's by Dr. Brian Lentz. He has a niece that has autism. She was not quite high functioning, had severe behavioral issues, and they adopted, starting just by removing some of the grains, removing some of the high starches and the sugars, and she has slowly improved to the point where she can function. She can do her activities of daily living as far as dressing herself and feeding herself and attending and being part of the family again, where her behavior was to the point where she couldn't be part of the family.
Yeah. L-E-N-S-K-E-S. L-E-N-S-K-E-S.
Did you mention
Medicine is
the
his
movie?
podcast.
There's also a movie called Magic Pill.
There's also a movie called The Magic Pill. And if any of you guys know a child with autism, Asperger's, ADHD, oppositional defiant, it used to be on Netflix. I think they took it off, but you can still find it.
You can find it
It's on
like,
YouTube.
or something like
Tubi.
that.
It's called The Magic Pill, and you'll be blown away, especially if you have a
That's what started us on keto.
yeah. If you have a nephew or a grandson or somebody with a behavioral condition, and you watch that movie, you will cry, and then you'll be furious, and then you'll start to fix the problem. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I'm approaching menopause, I think, and I'm wondering about, diet and supplements and hormones or not hormones, or kind of what's the right path to go.
First of all, she looks way too young to be approaching menopause, right? Yeah, look at him, good man, good man. Don't you want to take this one?
I can. So as you're heading into, I'm assuming you're more in the perimenopausal age, not quite all the way
Yeah,
there
I think
yet.
probably there, yeah, I'm heading
So
there.
progesterone is some of the, or is the first hormone, and it gets kind of crazy. That's usually where we start. But before we even talk about supplementing hormones, you got to make sure that the sleep is right, and that you're managing your stress, that you're taking time for yourself. Because let's face it, as moms who are going 10 different directions, we're not taking time for ourselves, and our cortisol is up here. And if your stress and your sleep is not fixed, adding hormones are going to be like dropping a penny in the bucket. It's just not going to feel great. And then dialing in the nutrition, making sure you're getting plenty of fat, because if you don't have enough fat in your diet, your body's not going to utilize and make the hormones that it needs to. But perimenopausal, we usually start with the progesterone. So when you're starting to notice changes in your sleep-wake cycle, you're just not getting as deep a level of sleep. You become a little snappier or moodier, like you just things that would not have irritated you. Yeah, don't say anything about that. Things that would have irritated you before, you just snap quicker, and having less patience with your husbands and kids and things like that. Breast tenderness, especially around the cycle, the kicking in. I choose to use bioidentical hormones in my practice, meaning it is hormones that is meant to mimic you. I do it not just because they're natural, but because I can give you a specific dose. Because usually in the early parts of menopause, perimenopause, you start slow and kind of work your way up. And you dose them that way. I do topical for progesterone, and then when we get into menopause, we start looking at estrogen and progesterone and testosterone supplementation still through bioidentical. There's a lot of concerns. Is it risky for me? Is it dangerous for me? And the truth is no. So that was skewed by the Women's Health Initiative study that came out, and the lead author, since we found when we go back and look at what he did, he just misinterpreted the data because it was a great narrative, and it made him a public figure overnight, preaching that all of a sudden these hormones were going to kill us. Well, if hormones were going to kill women, we would have heart attacks before the age of 50 at the same rate that men do, but we don't. It's heart protective. Most breast cancers tend to come as we're moving into losing our hormones, not before, because hormones are protective for cancer in the colon, in the breast, in the uterus, and all of these things. Now, there's certain situations you shouldn't use hormones, and you should seek out a provider who knows what they're talking about to know if you are a candidate or not. But moving into that, don't be scared of them. If your life is miserable, if you feel horrible all the time, and your quality is crap, then maybe it's time to look at supplementing and find somebody that knows what they're talking about.
Is there a risk to choosing not to give hormones other than the emotional risk?
Yeah, so your bones are going to thin faster.
Yes.
Your bones are going to thin faster. Your cardiac risk does go up as your estrogen leaves your body. After about 5 to 7 years, your risk of heart attack goes up faster. Your risk of cancer goes up higher because you're losing all those protective benefits of hormones.
And that's super important. If any woman in here, if your doctor said, "Oh, you don't want hormone replacement, that's bad," they're going to pull that off the market. There was a study that's complete horse crap. The study, actually, when you actually crunch the numbers in the study showed a benefit. It never reached the point of being statistically significant that there was harm. It was not even significant. But the lead researcher wanted to be a hero, and he went out there, and there's actually a chapter in Marty McCary's book about this. He tells this whole story. And even other researchers in the study were like, "Dude, what are you talking about? That's not what the study showed at all."
Published it before.
They published it before while they were on vacation or something, and didn't get their permission. And they're like, "Whoa, that's not what it even." And that's what your doctor's practicing on. If your doctor said, "Oh, you can't take estrogen," no. It's completely bogus, completely made up, and your doctor doesn't know better. Your doctor's not in on it. Your doctor just doesn't know better. And you're the one suffering, because what she said is absolutely true. If your estrogen's low enough for long enough, you're going to get osteoporosis. Your risk of heart attack is going to go up and become equal to a man your age if your hormones get low enough. There's a long list of risks of not optimizing your hormones if they're not currently optimal. Yeah. Don't be afraid of hormones. And in the study, they were actually using fake hormones. They weren't even using bioidentical. And even then, they couldn't show that it was dangerous.
And the participants in the study had already been menopausal for like
They were
10
like
years.
60,
They were
70,
older.
80-year-old women.
And they had no
age.
symptoms. They had no symptoms when they enrolled them in the study.
Yeah,
So
they were
how are
already
they supposed
past-
to show a benefit?
Yeah, they were already past that. They were like 80 and had no symptoms, right? And so, yeah, for somebody like you, 100% safe, 100% do it. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about
Okay.
how keto carnivore can help with PCOS.
So how can carnivore keto help with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome? And this, actually, she mentioned nutrition. So some women, their hormones get out of whack so bad they can't eat, they stop having periods. They can't have a child, right? And so many doctors, when they check all the hormones, they'll be like, oh, your testosterone's high, that's what's wrong. No, your testosterone may be high if you have PCOS, but that's not the root cause. The root cause is hyperinsulinemia and chronic inappropriate inflammation acting on your ovaries. Effectively, you've given yourself diabetes, type 2 diabetes of the ovaries is what you've done with your diet. I can't tell you, I can't even guesstimate how many thousands of women who went keto or carnivore reversed their PCOS and got pregnant. Actually, that's when I was years ago at my clinic in Camden. That's one of the first things that made me go, wait a minute, maybe there's something more to this keto than just weight loss. Because I was just recommending it back in 2005 as a weight loss hack. Oh, you need to lose some weight, do keto, it works every time. I had a 48-year-old woman and a 51-year-old woman, both either past menopause or right in the middle of it, went keto to lose weight. Both of them got knocked up. 48 and 51. Now, one of them was super thankful and felt blessed, and the other one wanted to cut my throat. True story. And I was like, because I've been practicing medicine long enough to know 51-year-olds that doesn't happen very often. It can happen, but it's not very often. And she was with the same guy that was the boyfriend, but she did not want to be pregnant. And now she had this blessing from heaven. And I was like, I wonder if it affected her hormones somehow. But you see, no other doctors are asking that question. All they're busy saying is, oh, keto will give you a heart attack or keto butt crack or something. It'll do something bad, I don't know, but don't do it. But I went back to my books and I was like, what happened? That's how a doctor's supposed to act. I admit it, I have no damn idea how that just happened. It's cool. I feel kind of good, except for that one woman, I feel bad. But still kind of, yeah. So, but then I had to get the books again. I had to go figure it out. And now I know it can even help you, because she's right, progesterone is the first one to nosedive, although all your doctor will want to talk about is estrogen. Your progesterone is probably already starting to dip a little, and that's why you're starting to feel those weird things. You could probably put that off for 10 years by going low carb enough, consistently enough, anti-inflammatory, uninflammatory, ancestral. You could put it off another 5 or 10 years before you have to start worrying about that. Maybe.
And on that same note, women, if you've had a hysterectomy and your specialist only wants to give you estrogen, you need them both. They work together. Progesterone does more than just keep you from bleeding or keep you from
100%.
uterine cancer. It affects from your head to your toe.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
She's been trying to ask.
Oh, yes. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm 49, and I think I'm still a regular cycle. Maybe 10 years ago, I would just start getting like moody during certain times or sensitive during certain times. And so I went on a mood stabilizer. First, it was just during a certain part of the cycle, and then it was just monthly on a regular basis. And that's kind of helped. But different things you hear here and there, I mean, is it maybe more that it could have been the hormones changing versus being, just being.
So she's saying she's 49 and several years ago started having multiple mood changes along with some mild cycle changes, but mostly mood changes during cyclical times. Was put on a mood stabilizer, has helped a little bit, still having some of those symptoms. So Absolutely, as your hormones start going like this all over everywhere, you start feeling that way too. When you add stability to them, it goes away. Anxiety is a huge one that I see in the perimenopausal and menopausal woman. It can wake up in the middle of the night feeling anxious. It's not just the snippy moodiness, it's just feeling anxious. I describe it as going through puberty backwards.
Yeah, that's
It's
great.
kind of what it feels like. So if you remember what you were like at 12, that's where you're at. I mean, I remember sitting in church and bawling it, and I don't know, Amazing Grace, and they're like, "What's wrong with you?" I don't know. But doctors' knee-jerk reaction as soon as ladies start feeling anything emotional is, one, please get out of my office. I don't want to talk to you because you're an emotional woman. Yes.
Yep.
And then two, they don't know that is hormonal, so they just assume, and here you go, your mood stabilizer. And there's been lots of ladies that we will start on progesterone and even them out in that perimenopausal age, and they're like, I can come down on my Zoloft, or my Paxil, or my Prozac, or whatnot. And yes, and they can help. And say a woman's had breast cancer that's estrogen receptive, we have to use things like that because we can't give them the hormones. But if that's not you, the hormones are a much more natural way of evening out, and they don't have the side effect of waking and all these other things that can come along with it.
So if the average doctor thinks that the only hormone that's relevant is estrogen, and that's, you go to the doctor's office, you're like, I'm having these, I don't know, I'm moody, and he's like, well, maybe you're in menopause, let me check your estrogen. And it comes back normal. The first one to drop is progesterone. The next one's testosterone. The last one to drop is estrogen. All he checked was estrogen, and it was normal. So guess what? You need some Prozac. That happens a million times a day in the United States. So common because doctors are not trained about bioidentical. They're just not trained about it. All they know is the Women's Health Initiative study showed that hormone replacement causes cancer. No, don't do it.
Well, and
Which was false.
the education for doctors was removed. Like I have colleagues that graduated in the last 5 years, and they were taught nothing about hormones.
Yep.
They had to go learn about it on their own because it was removed for the fear of doing harm. When in reality, you're doing harm by doing nothing.
Yep.
All right, we got like 10 more minutes.
10 minutes.
We got to start
So
wrapping
it
up.
seems like inflammation comes up a lot. Like a lot of things are being blamed, other things like cholesterol or whatever, but it's really inflammation. So what's the least inflammatory foods, I guess?
Yeah. Let me just ask you guys. So he's like, I hear a lot about inflammation, maybe even have a little bit.
I have eczema, by the way. So that's
Gotcha. And so he has eczema. So what are the most uninflammatory foods and what are the most inflammatory foods? Does anybody know what the most uninflammatory food on planet Earth is?
Red meat.
Red meat. Now, how many of you are sitting there going, wait, what? Fatty red meat is the least inflammatory food on planet Earth for humans. Yes, absolutely true. Meat, egg yolks, and seafood, cold water seafood, small fish, literally are the most uninflammatory food on planet Earth. Animals have claws and fangs. If you try to go and attack, has anybody ever tried to catch a deer? Just catch him, he will whoop your ass. Okay? They can run, they can fight, they can bite. They don't need chemical toxins to protect them. Plants have to stay in one spot and grow right there. And if something comes along and tries to eat them, they're dead. That's it. They can't run or fight or bite. They have chemical defenses built into their leaves, their stalks, their seeds. So the seeds of plants are babies. That's the plant's babies. So do you think the plant really wants to protect its babies? That's why, yeah. So the most inflammatory foods you can eat are grains, which are grass seeds. And you're like, but wait, wheat, bread, We have epidemics of diabetes and autoimmune diseases, and chronic inflammation, chronic back pain. Maybe there's a connection. Now, the reason I can say with authority that meat is that is because me and hundreds of other people on a carnivore diet have been eating nothing but meat, eggs, and seafood. Or in some cases, only red meat, fatty red meat, nothing else, for years, if not decades. And we check our inflammatory markers regularly because we share them with our viewers and our tribe members. Now, if how many of you has your doctor said, oh, you got inflammation, you can cut out the red meat? You ever heard that on a TV show or in a magazine, on the website? Well, if just eating a little bit of red meat was that inflammatory, then eating nothing but red meat for 10 years, you ought to be inflamed up like a 13-year-old pimple, right? But when we check our inflammatory markers, they're all stone cold normal. We don't just check one or two. Some of us, last time I checked 8 or 9 markers of inflammation, all perfectly normal. And I live on meat. So how's that possible in a 56-year-old man that used to play 3 sports, that works on a farm every day? How are all my markers of inflammation completely normal? And I eat nothing but meat. We've just been miseducated on a lot of stuff. We've been mistaught, we've been misled. Part of it from the corporations is evil. Let's just say it, it's evil. They're making profit off us all being sick and fat and miserable. But the average doctor, they're not in on it. They don't know better. They just don't know better. All they know is what they were trained. And like Amanda just said, when we got that Women's Health Initiative, they actually took the education out of the textbook because they didn't want the doctors to know about hormone therapy because it might hurt people. Turns out it was totally false. That's the trap your doctor's stuck in. And that's why they may say ignorant things. It's not that they're evil. It's not that they're dumb. They just were miseducated. I was miseducated.
There's a certain percentage of fat you should be getting if you're carnivore.
So it depends. If you want to go carnivore, buy fatty cuts of meat and then cook it in butter or cook it in lard. For most people, that's going to be the exact perfect fat to protein ratio for most people, at least to start with. That's right, buy a fatty chuck roast and cook it in butter or cook it in bacon grease. Roast some butter on it, right? Butter's good for you, not bad for you. In case you were wondering, okay. But that's going to give you all the healthy protein and healthy fats you need. It's going to help you lose weight. It's going to help you be less inflamed. It's going to help you sleep better. It's going to help your hormones. It's going to help all that stuff. And 100 other things I didn't mention because we're almost out of time. But whatever your goal is, it's going to help with that. And you're not going to be inflamed from it.
So I've had psoriasis since the age of 5, which is a version of eczema. It was on 85% of my body had some sort of plaque on it. It was on an immunosuppressant for a short time and was able to get off of my immunosuppressant. What I chose to do is I did beef, bacon, butter, and eggs for a full 30 days, and then I slowly added other meats. I personally, while I love meat, I miss veggies. I mean, I do. But when I added them back, I started very slowly. And I talk about this, I did a short video called Meat Cleanse, and it was just what I did. I started with avocado, and then I added olives, and then I added cucumber, and then slowly, and at any point that I felt a tingling or an itch, or I had plaque, I stopped and that food got out. So I learned that while low-carb foods like peppers are perfectly fine for a lot of people, for me, I can only do them every once in a while. Tomatoes, perfectly fine for a lot of people, but I can't do them back-to-back days. I'm going to start to itch. But it also has to do with environmental stuff. It's touching your skin and your stress. I got it down to, I was completely clear. I had nothing on my body, and then a big stressor hit, and I've got one little patch, and it just won't go away for a year. And it's just from the stress of things.
That's another one of the very first things I saw in my practice many years ago. A lady, she was about 85% coverage, head to toe. She wouldn't even go to the supermarket. She'd send her husband because literally she had to get dressed up head to toe to go out in public or people would look at her. And she wanted to lose some weight, went keto, and she just liked meat, didn't like veggies. She was a carnivore before I even knew what the term meant. She came back 6 months later, and I was like, what the heck? And she was like, I know, right? She had just, before she came to the doctor's appointment, she had stopped by the grocery store and picked up a few things because her skin had cleared up because meat is so inflammatory that it had caused her psoriasis to go almost completely away. She had one little patch right there. Whereas before she was 85%, even on her face, I felt sorry for her. But when she found out about carnivore accidentally, she's like, boom, that's how I eat now. Yeah, it's a huge deal.
All right, we've got to wrap up for the night, but we are going to do this quarterly. So we've already got another one scheduled. Watch the Facebook page for that. My Facebook page. I'm sure you'll post it too after I post it as well. Check out lcforbh.com. Tickets are up and for sale. You'll see this guy. You'll see Dr. David Diamond. If you need somebody to go over your labs with you, to consult with you, to give you good, honest information, and have a good, honest talk with you and let you decide what is best for your health care, come see us at Clear Path Medical. We would love to help take care of you. You can find that at clearpathmedical.net. And we have a door prize. Marley, who's the winner?
Okay, ticket number 281527. 2815.
He got a good book. And I bet I know somebody who would sign it.
You are the winner.
All right, guys. Someone whose wife's driving here. Yeah, I called you out.
Anyone?